With cyber attacks on the rise, protecting your data security is more important than ever. So why is Congress considering a bill that puts your credit card data at greater risk of being hacked and exposed to foreign networks? The Durbin-Marshall credit card bill shifts billions in consumer spending to less secure payment networks, all so that corporate megastores can make bigger profits. Don't let Durbin-Marshall steal your data. Visit electronicpaymentscoalition.org and tell your senators to oppose the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill.
God bless you all. Enjoy the day. And I'm coming down to do that Easter egg roll in just a minute. Thank you all so very, very much. Thanks, everybody. And by the way, say hello to oyster bunnies. Come on up, bunnies. Get up here so they can see you.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please.
Just a catching strays over here.
You're in for a hell of a show.
Keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs.
It's time for our main event.
Welcome back to the Ruthless Variety Program. Did you guys have a nice oyster?
Yeah, the oyster bunnies had their time off from Red Lobster to show up to the White House.
I mean, it just doesn't get any better. You knew, first of all, anytime he does a public appearance, it's a complete disaster. But that is like something extra special, where you've got him presiding over a very rainy day, where I'm sure the kids were absolutely miserable in Washington, D.C. for an Easter egg hunt that they do on the South Lawn. Can you imagine
And I bet he was miserable too, because
myself.
that's not the holiday he cared about on that day. So
No, it's certainly not. We'll get into all of that. But the oyster
bunny.
The oyster bunny.
Yeah.
That's where we are.
That's where we are. Did everybody have a nice weekend?
Terrific.
Yeah, well, it was
Absolutely
great.
wonderful.
We have to make note of the fact that your alma mater, the NC State crew, is in the Final Four.
Yeah, rocking and rolling. I mean, you saw in the ACC tournament, crushing Duke. Then UVA, UNC, which is a horrible school full of terrible people. And then we did it to Duke again, and that's what happens. You know, you go to NC State, it's the real America, it's good people, it's good folks, and that's what happens. They win.
I will say, and I'm not going to throw too much shade because I've actually enjoyed watching them on their tournament roll. They were supposed to not make the tournament at all, and coach was going to be fired. Now they're in the Final Four, and I can imagine he has a lifetime contract. The only misgiving I have is that for the next week, we will be delighted by every single Jim Valvano video that has ever been
Which is
produced.
a bad thing. Like,
well,
this guy who tells people don't quit. He runs he in his name.
I'm not a
passed
hater.
away from cancer, sadly, but he runs a great cancer charity.
I love Jim Valvano. I remember watching his ESPY speech live. It was like incredibly moving and everything else. But like when you NC State basketball, this is your thing.
I mean, that's the thing is whenever you go to a game or anything, he's omnipresent. And even, a lot of the charity work we do on campus was Jimmy V's cancer stuff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think fighting cancer is a worthy cause. I don't get your animosity towards it. But
Well, it was nice to see him beat Duke. I think the entire country was rooting for NC State.
And it was a great weekend overall. Easter egg hunts, Easter dinner, a lot of ball on, a lot of sports.
Yep.
March Madness, golf. There's even football if you're into spring ball, UFL, which is the combined USFL, XFL, which is actually, I think it's a pretty decent product. I mean, they got some kids out there that can play.
No, it is. It looks like a decent product.
like a month before COVID hit, I saw the XFL game out there. Was it in Navy Yard?
Yeah, DC Defenders.
It was
Tons
fun,
of fun,
right?
Yeah.
Tons of fun. Had a blast.
Yeah, I think so. I'll notice my Sunday, I went to our club, had a little brunch, and then I noticed a very handsome Ashbrook family coming in. And I couldn't help but notice Mr. Ashbrook himself, presiding over his wonderful, beautiful family, looked far more professional in that setting than I have seen him here at work in months.
Wow.
I put on a tie for Easter.
Well,
Yeah.
I like
It's
that.
an important holiday.
I like that.
I feel like you got to show it the proper respect. The President of the United States didn't do that, but regular people
Good for
should do
you.
it.
No,
I like that.
he just looked like a real Joe. He's
Yeah, you
commanding
clean up
them.
well, and then you show up on the show and not give a damn.
Yeah.
Well, you know what, friend? I am here. And I do
Which
know,
is like the baseline at this point. He did it,
I
folks.
do know. Last week you gave me a very, very hard time because I was on vacation with my wonderful family, and I brought these guys a little something, and I thought that I wouldn't stop with you. I brought something for you, Smug.
Oh, that's nice.
Oh, this is nice. What is
It's
this?
a gift, Michael. Maybe you could open that up and read Smug what I brought him as a gift.
Michael is. I know it's a bad thing when Michael is opening
Yeah.
Smug's gift. I don't know what this. What are we looking at? It looks like an invoice.
It's an invoice for a comfortably smug share of the rent of the studio here.
No, it's actually just a utility bill.
Oh, it's just a utility bill.
Just a monthly utility share.
You're racking up quite the bill here, Smug, apparently,
Jeez.
according to Mr. Ashbrook.
Jeez.
So the Cold War between the two of them continues.
It continues.
I'll tell you what, I'll charge you rent for the audience. How about that?
Oh, God, it's getting ugly here in the variety program, and it's only a Tuesday.
But it is great to have all four of us.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
this is going to be a great show.
Great show.
There's a lot to cover, a lot of fun stuff too.
Well, we've already let Wolf down because we didn't do the meat.
Oh,
And
yeah,
you
we
know
have to
how
get
he
right to it.
likes.
Yeah, right.
You know how he
I'm sorry.
likes the meat.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
So-
I got to frivolity a little too
There was
quickly.
frivolity and there was, fooling around and such.
Tomfoolery.
But he wants to get into this, and so we'll get into it. You may have missed, and if you did, it's because you weren't online, you were a normal human being, that the Biden administration leaned into Transgender Day of Visibility celebration despite the controversies, according to the Washington Examiner. Can we put this graphic up, graphic 1? So what you're looking at here is a tweet from the White House. On Transgender Day of Visibility, we celebrate joy, strength, and absolute courage of some of the bravest people I know. This is from the President of the United States. Today, we show millions of transgender and non-binary Americans that we see them, they belong, and they should be treated with dignity and respect. Now, look, your views on all of that notwithstanding, it was Easter.
That's what Sunday was, folks.
It was Easter.
It doesn't matter where you are in the world, what you're doing. It was Easter. I mean, it's a simple thing. Like it'd be like on Christmas Day being like, I want to let everyone know it's National Accountant Awareness Day. Thank you to all your, thank your accountant today. It's Christmas. You know what I mean? Like, why? And I think I know why. Specifically, why is because the whole purpose of the left is to divide and conquer, and sow division and anger, and their coalition is built on all these groups. Which,
you couldn't have
which
picked
don't
Easter
care for
if-
each other.
you
and
couldn't
it's just
have picked-
united hate of fighting the enemy. And that's what it is. I mean, that's why they picked Easter.
Yeah, you couldn't have picked it if that wasn't your goal at some
100%.
level. Can we put up graphic 2, please? This is, again, from Joe Biden. To all those gathering in churches and homes around the world, happy Easter. May God bless you.
Oh.
You know.
I appreciate the sentiment. Just I don't feel like he put his back into that one
This
like
is-
he did the transgender message.
You can put it back into that one at all.
Can we get graphic 3 up?
Oh, there they are, side by side.
Okay, so there is the side-by-side of the sentiments expressed. So you can clearly see where he comes down on all of that. And then now graphic 4, please. We're going to do a full... We have the receipts here.
Yeah,
on the Variety
good.
program.
We should.
This is Joe Biden, and this is Philip Wegman's tweet as he is in the White House press pool. And he says, quoting Biden, "I didn't do that," Biden says when asked about proclaiming Easter Sunday as Trans Day of Visibility, unquote. Asked about Speaker Johnson's claim otherwise, the president said, quote, "He's thoroughly uninformed." Okay. I mean, this normally these kind of like proclamations and stuff don't require a full-throated discussion here on the Ruthless Friday program. This one does, in my view. Biden claims that this was all just sort of a staff thing, that he had nothing to do with transgender, let me get this right, Day of Visibility.
So I mean,
on
like,
Easter
so
Sunday.
what's the story here? Is he like so weekend at Bernie's absent that interns were running the place? I thought he's supposed to be commander in chief, and when he ran, he literally said the buck stops here. So is he just like a bumbling old guy that like Corinne Jean-Pierre is gonna have a fit if you say this guy's got dementia? If he's so gone that like the intern's grabbing his phone and sending these out, is that what he's telling us here?
Bingo.
Because they're trying to have it both ways.
If I had the board, I would press the bell button.
Yeah, they're just trying to have it both ways.
Well, look, Kamala got in on it.
Of course.
Oh boy.
You know, so she says on Transgender Day of Visibility. Again, we're talking about Easter Sunday.
Easter Sunday.
I mean, the rest of
Right,
us
it's
are
one of
like,
those per year.
eating ham.
Right.
You know, hanging out, like watching kids run down Easter eggs and things like that. Right. She's like, on Transgender Day of Visibility, we celebrate transgender and non-binary Americans. Their courage has given countless others strength, but no one should have to brave just to be themselves, says Harris on X. We see you, we stand with you, and we won't stop fighting for you. So this is not some sort of like staff snafu, but one of two things is going on here. And I think we know which one it is. It's either like Joe Biden, nobody ran this past Joe Biden, or his White House is just completely operated by a bunch of insane woke.
Which
people.
I believe to be the truth.
I think that's the second is
Yeah.
quite obviously true. I think the funny thing is like, when does Biden? Because he's complicit in all of this.
Yeah.
He's the president of the United States. You don't get to put out a proclamation from the White House on the letterhead without you, the president of the United States, being ultimately responsible for it. I would love if that was the case if in politics, if you just like, I don't know anything about that.
But think about how many times this White House pitches process stories about how Joe Biden gets angry because they don't provide the right details at the moment when he's demanding them. They try to have it both ways. They try to pretend like he doesn't know anything, and yet they also try to pretend like he's a real stickler for everything.
Exactly.
He wants to approve everything. Like he can't have it both ways. We know this is a game they're playing. Everybody knows.
I'm just sort of surprised we need a Trans Day of Visibility. I don't know if you guys have picked up a newspaper or put on the news anytime in the last couple of years, but it seems very visible to me. It seems to be predominant in our culture despite representing a very small number of Americans, which goes back to your point, Holmes, I think, it's this virtue signaling, right? Like they need to be able to prove to this community that they stand in solidarity with them, even the geriatric who occupies the White House. I do want to read, though, a thread here from this is a great account. If you don't follow it, I recommend you do. Jarvis_Best.
Yeah, he's crushing it.
He put up something this last weekend, which I thought was astute. He says, a lot of people are upset with Biden for declaring Easter to be Trans Day of Visibility. But to be fair, the date was selected only because the LGBT calendar was already rather full. The Trans Day of Visibility is March 31st. Don't confuse that with the Trans Day of Remembrance, which is November 20th. We must also take care to honor Transgender Parent Day, November 6th, Trans Awareness Week, November 13th through 19th, and International Pronoun Day, which is October 20th.
Nothing visible about those things.
Trans is also distinct from drag. Important. We have to denote that. International Drag Day is July 16th.
Okay.
But not everybody has a gender to trans. Agender Pride Day is May 19th. Intersex Awareness Day is October 26th. You can come out as any of these on National Coming Out Day, which is October 11th. It goes on and on and on. He has like 10, 15 tweets in here. And I mean, I guess I say that to say is like this is a familiar ploy of the left, which is just create more days where we celebrate you.
Yes.
And that's how we show how important you are.
But I will say with this particular selection, if it was just like a random Tuesday in March, it comes and goes. This was intentional, right? I mean, to Smug's point,
I mean,
this
that's
is
the thing.
intentional.
It's 100%. It's an election year. He's trying to gin up their base, and their base is a bunch of nutcases.
Americans for Prosperity has done it again. You're going to love this. Know how Biden's been running around the country bragging about Bidenomics? And the media's doing stories on how the president has embraced the term? Well, guess what? Americans for Prosperity just bought the Bidenomics.com domain name. I can't believe the White House didn't get this first. This would be like Pepsi buying Coca-Cola.com. It's hilarious. Bidenomics.com sets the record straight on the failures of Joe Biden's economy, his horrible record on cost of living, wages, debt, deficits, energy, and more. I've been to the site. I can tell you, it's not what Joe Biden wants Americans to see. AFP takes Biden's own words and compares them to the reality of everyday Americans. It's packed with facts and stories that prove Bidenomics is a costly failure. Americans for Prosperity deserves a lot of credit for this coup. Visit Bidenomics.com soon, the website Joe Biden doesn't want you to see.
Yeah,
That's it.
I think that boils down to that. But of course, conservatives pounce, fellas.
Oh, no.
Of course.
We
Yeah,
did?
Conservatives, we're pouncing and seizing. Conservatives, according to NBC, shell longstanding White House Easter egg contest. Conservative outlets zeroed in on a flyer banning religious themes from their Easter egg contest. So, not in addition to like the Transgender Day of Awareness, they've also banned religious thematics from an Easter egg.
And that's the thing.
From a religious holiday.
That's when I knew that, like, this is not just some mistake or and we saw the tweet of where he's like, oh yeah, Easter, bye. And then that tweet of like, I see you, I believe you, I'm with you, you know, for Trans Day of visibility. This right here, I mean, it lays it bare where they're like, please do not involve any religion with Easter. I mean, it should have no religious connotation. Like,
No, seriously.
how insane are these people? And that's the thing, is it's what makes it so apparent of this administration.
This was a flyer that was circulated amongst the general of the National Guard, inviting children of the National Guard members to submit Easter eggs for the White House contest that became the source of the controversy. The administration is banning religious themes in this year's contest.
I mean, imagine what would happen to this country if a National Guard child
Or to observe
accidentally put a cross on an egg.
the
at White
resurrection
House.
of
I mean,
Jesus.
Imagine, we'd fall apart.
Well, it would just be the end.
I mean,
And imagine what the message that sends to the transgender in their day of awareness.
it's the only religion you can practice at the White House is progressivism. That's the only thing. Like, you have to fully submit to that religion.
So I know how I celebrated Easter. Let's look at how the left did, besides the Transgender Day of Awareness and everything else. If we could play clip 1, that would be great. Spaghettis.
Oh, what is this? This is a banner at a church.
Yeah,
That's right.
We're looking at
they're fighting
we're looking at Palestinian protesters
in a church.
in a church.
Guys
with-
got the full Hamas neck gear going. There's people that are upset. They're fighting. And like most people are like, geez, I mean, I just want to take my family to church. And like you have this full protest going on. So according to the New York Post, a trio of attention-seeking protesters, one of whom previously glued his feet to the stands at the U.S. Open as a part of a climate change stuff.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I see where
they were
I-
cuffed and hauled out of St. Patrick's in New York. St. Patrick's Cathedral after disrupting an Easter Mass with shouts of Free Palestine on Saturday night.
I mean, this is just this is mental health crisis that's going completely unaddressed. These people used to be put into asylums for what's happening, especially in New York City, where there's this women are now terrified of going out because it's just women getting punched in the face because so many crazy people have been let out on the streets. People are getting pushed out in front of trains. You're seeing this is like the fact that this guy's gotten previously arrested for gluing his feet to the U.S. Open for the climate, and now he's going into people's churches on Easter to go holding banners saying "Free Palestine." Like, this is a mental health problem.
Well, it's also a problem, and Smug, you point this out all the time. It's also a problem with the amount of money on the left.
Yeah.
The dark money
Yep.
that is flowing on their side, that is paying people to
That's exactly
glue
right.
their feet to the U.S. Open, to disrupt some church service
Yep.
on Easter Sunday, And it's not. I would be. I mean, maybe I'm like wrong here, but I think this guy was probably paid. I think these people were paid
100%. That's
to stand up and do this.
So much of this, like, quote, activism is just bankrolled by left-wing dark money in this country, whether it's Hans-Jörg Wyss overseas or it's George Soros. Like, the amount of money that is going to activists to do this kind of bonkers shit is mind-blowing.
Well, it makes no other sense. I mean, either they're being paid, which is a rational act, or they should be put in an institution.
Yeah.
Right? Because these are clearly people who have lost their mind. Imagine making the decision to disrupt an Easter service at one of the most preeminent churches in our country with a free pound. Like, as if anybody who's taking their kids to church is like, oh, okay, well.
Now I'm going to consider your position.
now that
Thanks
I saw
for
your
ruining the
banner.
holiday.
Yeah, I mean, but this is sort of a pattern on the left. Anything that's revered in our society as sort of a cultural symbol must be teared down.
Correct.
I mean, that's what the left does in everything from this to throwing paint on the Mona Lisa. I mean, like, there's nothing that we revere in our culture that is safe from this sort of garbage. I mean, that's just sort of what they do.
It even happened at St. Patrick's Cathedral, where I think it was like a month or two ago. The statement put out by the cathedral was they were unaware that the funeral that they were holding was for a trans prostitute, and they went up and had like a Black Sabbath celebration, anti-God for a trans funeral, and that's exactly right, Duncan. Like, they want to tear down any institution held dear in this country because it all has to be replaced.
If they feel like they can erase any sort of tradition in our country and nothing means anything, then they ultimately win. I mean, that's really what it is.
I think that's right. At some point, normal people going to have to do something.
I hope, dude. I mean, it's gone pretty crazy.
You know, I mean, we're just dealing with too much insanity here.
I don't feel like we're asking for a lot either. And that's the thing, is they push and push against you. And because, we're normal people, you just sort of take it.
Well, you try to avoid it.
Right.
Right? And you do everything you can do to avoid it. But when it's constantly in your face like this, like,
Right. They hate normies. And
Normies.
they hate normies.
Ashford.
And Duncan read something that was the Jarvis tweet thread. I read that same tweet thread, and I looked at all the dates. You know what? I didn't see a date celebrating regular old-fashioned gay people. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, here's the day to stand up for gays. There's none of that anymore.
Oh no, they wouldn't. They would rule.
They moved on to the
right
next.
past.
They hate normal people.
Yeah.
They just do. They want to break down the entire society so that they can take over.
Yeah. God, good Lord. All right, so fellas, I don't know if you know this, but this is episode 400.
That's right. Wow. 400 of them.
400 of these that we've done.
Yeah, the hardest program in the game.
It really is. I mean, come day in, day out. It's an amazing feat of accomplishment. I never thought we'd make it past 4, let alone 400.
400. Going strong.
Big thanks to all of you who are listening, who have made this well worth our while, and I hope we can provide some entertainment and some information along the way, because it's been our pleasure. And in 400 different episodes, we've come at it a lot of different ways, haven't we, fellas?
Yeah, I mean, here's to 400 more.
Here's to 400 more, absolutely. And in that vein, Hack Madness.
That's right.
Where do we sit with all of this?
So,
Smug?
as we speak, voting should be underway. It's the Sweet 16. We've got the 16 biggest hacks. Again, to vote people, you have to go on Twitter, go to my profile. I have it pinned right at the top. As we speak, voting is underway to get into the Elite Eight. It's going to be a tough matchup. And, yeah, I mean, we've had, I think we've cracked over 250,000 votes.
Yes.
A lot of people getting involved.
I love that so much. Well, you got to get involved if you haven't already. Go to Comfortably Smug's Twitter profile and vote there online. It's going to be real fun as we get down to the Final Four, because there's a lot of
there's a lot of talent. There's a lot of folks who have been major hacks all year, and this is the time to hold them accountable.
I feel like, can I just make it at one aside? I feel like some of them are campaigning for the title.
Really?
Yeah, you don't know this because you just got back on Twitter after your Lent observation.
Yes.
But last week, Taylor Lorenz attended the Pornhub Awards. She's our defending champion. and she was videoed double masked, dancing at one of the Pornhub, Pornhub functions, in a way that is designed to sort of solicit the kind of attention that you would get on Hack Madness. Hard for me to believe that's entirely divorced for the competition.
I mean, that's the thing is we said she's trying to, like, week after week, she's trying to be out there getting attention. Like, you know, we've talked about there's TV bias, the hacks on there who are on TV. There might be a bias towards them. There's a bias towards folks who appear on King of the Hill, Jen Rubin and such. But again, it just comes down to the votes. It's going to be the people who decide.
Yeah. All right. So coming up on Ruthless, we're going to talk a little bit about why the House GOP majority keeps shrinking. Seems like a week after week type thing. Put a little context behind that. From California to New York, leftist insanity abounds. We'll discuss California's new $20 minimum wage and the squatters suing homeowners in New York.
Wildest story. I can't wait.
I can't wait. Wild story. And we also have some variety. They deal with airlines, Smug.
Always up for that.
Yeah, so there's some airline stuff in there, and then there's Gangs of Monkeys, which we were tagged, I think, a record amount of times on Twitter about this monkey gang story.
Problem. It's a problem.
And then we have General Tata, who is a very interesting guy if you haven't heard of before. You've probably seen him on Fox News, giving military analysis and whatnot. Very smart guy. We go through a whole range of issues. He's a novelist. Mm-hmm. And he's got a new book out. And novelist, it's like a real, it's not like, you know, this guy's some kind of an operative who just decided to throw out a book. He's an accomplished novelist.
Yeah,
the
he's
likes of which,
done like multiple series.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, these are like big selling books, and you're going to want to check that out. So with all that, we got it coming up right after this.
The media is great at distracting you from things you should actually be focused on. While the media was debating Taylor Swift, China, Russia, Brazil, India, and South Africa, basically half the world's population created BRICS. That's BRICS, which is a massive economic alliance that's already talking about replacing the dollar with their own currency. The consequences of this could be dire, with your 401k accounts losing value if BRICS is successful. Why risk your personal savings? Diversify your financial future. Invest in the one thing that has proven stable for centuries. Gold from today's sponsor, Allegiance Gold. They've earned the highest trust ratings in the precious metals industry, and their relationships are based on integrity, expertise, and impeccable service. Go to protectwithruthless.com today or call 855-510-GOLD. Right now, get up to $5,000 in free silver with a qualifying purchase. Don't rely on promises of ever-increasing stock values or assurances the economy will remain stable forever. Protect your financial future today. Protectwithruthless.com. That's protectwithruthless.com or call 855-510-GOLD.
All right, so the House majority. As it turns out, it hasn't been going great, fellas. The question that The Hill poses in their lead article is, who's to blame for GOP's dwindling House majority? It depends on whom you ask. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene made waves last month when she pointed fingers at a pair of Republicans who decided to recently quit Congress before their terms were up, reducing the party's already slim advantage to a hairline one-vote margin. Yet Greene declined to mention the third lawmaker who dashed for the exits prematurely, former Speaker Kevin McCarthy, a close ally of Greene, who resigned his seat in December after conservatives booted him from the speakership 2 months earlier. There's a lot here, right? And some of it we've been talking about in perpetuity, about the internal dynamics of a House Republican conference that led to the booting of McCarthy in the first place, right? There's factions, and it's not fun for an awful lot of them. And there are kind of your old school folks who announced retirements early. There are a bunch of people who announced late, which is troubling. And then you have the people who announced and resigned, which literally takes you from, what was it, 6 down to, is it 1?
I think it's 1. Like, you have to check your watch. What are we at right now?
I mean, the latest is Mike Gallagher. We talked about Ken Buck, I guess, 2 weeks ago. Mike Gallagher is planning on stepping down on April 19th. And the timing of that announcement basically means that there's no special election there to actually fill the seat. It's going to remain vacant until the general election in November, meaning there's no way that you get any sort of Republican back. Boy, it gets tough to lawmake with things like that, doesn't it?
I mean, I don't know the reason for that timing. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. I don't know if it's...
You mean for Gallagher, why he chose that date?
I don't get it. Like, I could understand if it's like a swing district and he wanted to make it so that, like, okay, well, it's not like there could be a special and then you'll have a Dem in there. And I mean, I have no clue. That's the part that I really couldn't understand.
No, I can't either. And you would have thought that the guy would leave a little bit before that so that there can be a replacement. And for people who are listening that may not be familiar with what happens in the House when someone resigns from Congress and there's no elected member to fill their seat, the seat just becomes a caretaker seat. There's no vote for your district, but there's some casework and stuff.
Well, the staff continues to do casework.
However, the majority is on a hair's breadth here, and if somebody were to die, it's over for Republicans. And who knows what Democrats could do between now and Election Day or now and the end of the year to cause problems for our side. I mean, we won this majority fair and square, and we just aren't acting like it. Ever since they deposed McCarthy, which, you've heard from all of us on the show that was just a dumb idea. If you don't like him, pick somebody different next time. It's just been a waterfall of problems ever since they deposed him.
Yeah. Yep. No, I mean, look, it's a real problem. I mean, I think the good news from a governing perspective is an awful lot of the big challenges are in the rear view mirror, at least the opportunities to completely humiliate yourself. They're dealing with big issues like foreign funding. They're dealing with defense authorization. They've got things which would go a lot better if you had more Republicans in those seats. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, geez, it's like a cultural issue at this point. Is it not, Dunks?
Yeah, I mean, I think the die was cast when they kicked out McCarthy. I mean, we've said this on the show and predicted it would get worse, and it did.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, I could complain about specific members choosing to retire when they did and all these sorts of things, but I think it all just goes back to just that. It's like you booted McCarthy because you thought there was something that was possible which wasn't possible, and a lot of personal animus back and forth between a few members and him, and look where you are now. Does everybody feel better about it now? We feel like we're in a better spot. We're gonna tackle that, multi-trillion-dollar debt anytime soon. No? Okay. Well, then I guess it was for nothing. Congratulations.
It goes back to something you say all the time, Holmes, is that politics is a team sport.
Yeah.
And the Democrats seem to have this figured out. They always vote together on the most important things. But Republicans, on the most important things, last fall, we got to vote to get rid of McCarthy. Now, we got to leave Congress. It's like nobody sees it as a team sport anymore, and that's a real Achilles for our side.
It's what Holmes said. It's a cultural problem, and I have no problem with disagreement within the conference.
People don't see eye to eye on anything.
I am totally fine with everybody getting in a room and disagreeing with absolutely everything. Conservative members, moderate members, leadership, rank and file, all of that sort of stuff. That's fine. That's par for the course.
That's the way it goes.
That's how things work in the Capitol. But to eat your own in the way that we have here as a Republican conference in the House, and the infighting and the dysfunctional nature when you take things out of that room and get to the floor is just something we have to change. Yeah. We have to change if we're going to make an argument with the American people that we need to have a majority again. I mean, we just got to get our act together.
Well, you got to see the big picture, and nobody's seen the big picture on any of that. I'll tell you one group that's seeing the big picture that's close to your heart, Club for Growth.
That's right.
Club for Growth announced that they're going to be key voting and docking conservatives any vote against banning TikTok. The important subtext of all of that is that one of the major donors, Jeff Yass, who you've become familiar with here on this program,
absolutely,
is one of the major donors to Club for Growth. And lo and behold, Club for Growth typically concerns itself with economic matters, things like economic growth, like Club for Growth. It's kind of in the title. Decided they're going to get into this game. And so they're key voting things, and they've hired lobbyists, and we've read about all of these things. Interested if you have any sort of takeaways.
So to connect a lot of the discussion, I saw this tweet and this news story from Politico about this, and for folks who don't know, Jeff Yass is a major stakeholder in TikTok, so he has an interest in TikTok expanding, if anything, and like Holmes said from the article, he's a major donor to Club for Growth, and I think when it comes to this whole TikTok ban situation. I would like to talk to Jeff. I have a lot of questions about.
You still haven't gotten the call?
I haven't. And that's the thing is Jeff, just give me a ring. I can give you my bank and routing numbers. Won't take long. You can change my mind or make my mind.
You have a lot of questions.
I haven't decided.
Is the $3 million to get punched by Mike Tyson on TikTok still on the table?
100%.
No headgear?
Yeah, no headgear.
No headgear. It still stands. And think of the ratings, Jeff. Everyone is going to sign up for TikTok to watch that. Left, right, everybody wants to see me get punched by Mike Tyson.
$3 million, a very available routing number.
Yeah.
No overseas transactions.
100%.
You just make that happen, and then you will make your mind up.
Yep, that's all it takes. It's
to the
not
extent
asking.
that it's possible after a face punch.
Yeah, 100%. I'll if need be in my will and testament, I'll put in something that'll say my opinion is what Jeff Yass says.
He may be eating through a straw and unable to communicate in any way, but he'll be firmly behind TikTok.
Yeah.
And his family will live comfortably.
Yeah,
for generations.
And I would like to. That's the thing, Jeff. Is I just want discussion.
Yeah.
I'm an open-minded guy.
Well, he's got a lot of
questions. Yeah,
got questions. That
easy.
maybe that he can settle.
I'm a reasonable guy.
Yeah,
and Jeff seems like a smart guy. He's got some answers for me.
If you get it, you get it. Okay, folks? If you get it, you get it. All right, so there was a big story in the Washington Post on Monday, which we'll cover briefly here because it is important to an awful lot of you because many of you that listen to the program get 150 texts a day soliciting money. Mm-hmm. And we get a lot of questions back on this program like, what's up with this win red situation? Who's running this? Why do I get all this stuff? And some of the appeals are just over the top and completely ridiculous. A couple of things that this Post story goes through, and I think they did a pretty good job. Dossie is writing this deal, and he's talked to an awful lot of people. But one of the things that he's talking about is the ultimate liability or the culpability in why it is that you're receiving all of those texts. It doesn't lie with the processor, WinRed. That's the back end that just processes the transaction. What you're seeing is all the vendors from the various campaigns making a decision about how many texts they're going to send you. And they're not free. They send these things with their own, their goal is to get in the plus column, but there's costs associated with it. And they've made some decision making over the years that just spamming the shit out of you. Their likelihood of getting some return that exceeds what they spend on those texts is worth it. Now, there's some of us, and I'm quoted in this article. I'm quoted back to a meeting I had in 2021, which I vaguely remember. But my concern at the time was if you were going to basically abuse donors by having consistent texts and emails when it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. And there is no significant hook to any of it other than you're just ping, 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 ping. They're going to unsubscribe from these things. And it's going to dwindle your lists and your rate of return, your ROI is going to go down significantly. I think I've been right about that over the last couple of years. I think that is the right take. I stand by it. And that's what they quoted me, I guess, accurately saying back in 2021. And there are other people talking about, John Hall is somebody who's been in the middle of all of these things, talking about how we just don't treat small dollar fundraising with the respect that it deserves, the donors with the respect that it deserves. And I think that's right. But Duncan, I'm interested because this is your line of work. What's your take on all this?
So I would say number one, the rise of small dollar fundraising has coincided during the rise of Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is the greatest small dollar fundraiser in the history of politics. And to a large extent, we don't have a Republican small dollar universe of donors. And the Democrats, they kind of have a Democratic small dollar universe. But primarily, both of these universes exist either to support or oppose Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. And so as a result of that, you've seen a herd mentality, I think, in all of the fundraising appeals, whether it's a House candidate in Rhode Island or a Senate candidate in Arizona, to attract national small dollar donors across the country by sort of swimming in the wake of the news of the day of Donald Trump. And as a result of that, I think the donor's relationship to the actual candidate they're supporting is rather tenuous. Mm-hmm. And then you add in the other problem that you sort of mentioned earlier of too many appeals, and that happens because we're all fishing off the same pier. Like, I see this all the time. People will say, I donated $25 on Win Red, and I ended up in all of these other lists. Win Red gave my information to these other campaigns. And I'm here to tell you that's not true. That's not in fact what happened. What happens, digital fundraising happens a couple of ways. Number one, through the paid advertising effort of campaigns and committees themselves. They're sending out appeals on social media, or they're running ads on YouTube, pre-roll ads, and they're getting you to donate. Or, email lists are brokered between campaigns and committees, or that data is shared between them in some way, so you end up getting appeals from people that you didn't necessarily sign up for. Or three, every quarter when all of the donor data is published on the FEC,
bad actors.
Yeah, list your full name and your full address, and people will download that data from the FEC and go to a data warehouse that can append that data for email and phone number.
Which is illegal, I might add.
Yeah.
And then use a service to send blast emails and text messages on behalf of other campaigns. So what happens isn't that like Win Red is stealing your data or selling your data. It's that there's all of these other bad actors in the marketplace that don't have a lot of respect for you, that are spamming the shit out of you. Mm-hmm. And they're all saying the exact same thing. And so I worry long term about how we keep small dollar donors engaged on the things we care about and fighting for conservative values if our entire strategy of marketing is entirely divorced from that fact.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. The other thing to be aware of is on the Democratic side, there is a cottage industry of C4s that do this around issues. Mm-hmm. Right? They're well funded by Democratic billionaires.
Yep.
And we've talked about this a lot, the dark money side. That, if you're into guns, they got 17 lists for you. If you're into abortion, they got 17 different lists for you. Almost every Democratic voting constituency has been engaged at some level in a contribution metrics that can be used by Democratic politicians in cycle or out of cycle when the issue arises. Republicans have basically built their entire thing around Trump.
Yeah.
Right? And like, just to give you an example, if you want to think about this, and I know this gets a little bit weedy, but I think it's important, particularly for those of you who are like interested in the financing of party politics these days. Like, there are 75 million Republican voters in this country. There are 5 million donors. 5 million. The biggest problem that Republicans have, in my estimation, is your failure to expand a donor base beyond just what it was built upon initially. That's why you're getting 18,000 texts a day, is because all of the players in the club, nefarious or not, have to go to the same small group of people.
Yeah, and the Democrats are like 5x what we are. You know, as we've seen it.
They have like 25 million.
Yeah, like a realignment of the parties, to more affluent coastal elites in the Democratic Party has also been a cash boon for them. And this isn't just a Republican Party problem. It's also a Democratic Party problem. I mean, there's been a huge misallocation of resources on the Democratic side. Go back to 2020 and look at how much money Amy McGrath, Jamie Harrison, Sarah Gideon raised. I mean, you're talking like, I think it was close to $300 million. and they lost by a combined 50 points or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Yep.
so the whole ecosystem is seeing a downturn right now, in part because of that, because of the way that we've sort of spammed the shit out of people for stuff that isn't possible.
Yeah. Yep.
Which is like, I don't know what the solution to this is, and I think a lot of this stuff falls under the First Amendment and free speech and all of that, and we don't want to regulate political speech or political fundraising, but there has to be some self-regulation, and people got to take a long look at what we're doing to the people that we purport to care about and change our behavior. And if we don't, then people are just going to stop donating. My recommendation to you, if you're somebody who's given money, continue to give money. Go directly to the campaigns you want to support and give them the money.
Well, we'll give you here on the Ruthless Variety program as time goes along. We're going to give you the explicit place to go to. If you're interested in the things that we're talking about and the people that we interview and all of that, we're going to give you our best guidance. So keep listening on that. I know you're getting all of these things. Try not to be frustrated by it, but unsubscribe to the shit that you don't like.
And make people earn your support. Make them tell you why they want to be in Congress.
Yeah.
Like why they want to be in the United States Senate. Make them tell a story that makes you understand that there's somebody that deserves your $25.
100%. 100%. All right. You guys ready for some blue state insanity?
Yes.
Yeah, always.
Oh, this is really a doozy. So this is CBS News. California set to hike wages for fast food workers to industry-leading $20 per hour starting yesterday, Monday, April 1st. Most California fast food workers will earn at least $20 an hour, the highest minimum wage across the U.S. restaurant industry. Yet, the pay hike is sparking a furious debate, with some restaurant owners warning of job losses and higher prices for customers, while labor advocates tout the benefits of higher wages. The new law, signed by Gavin Newsom last fall, takes effect, as we said, yesterday, requiring fast food chains in its 60 locations nationwide to pay workers at least $20 an hour. That means 553,000 fast food workers will earn more than the state's $16 minimum wage for all other industries. We talked about this, I don't know, a year ago, probably?
Yep.
And this is the left's construct for everything. It sounds great. It's like, well, you got to pay people more. All right. I'm all for wage growth. I think that sounds great. But when the government does it, inevitably what it means is people are going to lose their jobs.
Yep.
And so now what's your solution to that? Right? I mean, I think California is basically a model of how to ruin a successful ecosystem with homelessness, drug abuse, insane shit that they've got going on.
Literally poop in the streets.
Yeah.
literally poop in the streets.
Yeah.
Right? And yet this is their solution to this. It's not about how to grow the economy.
No.
It's all about how to redistribute and then pretend like business owners aren't in a capitalist system are not business owners. Like they're just going to work within the confines and go bankrupt themselves.
Well, that's the thing is you bring up a good point is that this has nothing to do with economic growth. One of the most overlooked statistics about President Trump's 4 years in office was it had the highest wage growth on record, if I recall, for the lower two quartiles, which means the working class people in this country. And you do that by having a robust economy, which creates so much competition because so many people, the unemployment's so low, there's so much competition because there's so many good paying jobs out there that you have to pay workers more. And it's because businesses are making more money in a good economic environment. When times are tough, they can't hire as much. And when you put a $20 minimum wage on a fast food restaurant, you're going to end up with an iPad at McDonald's taking your order.
100%, right? And I think that's where this story ends.
Well, no, it's not where the story ends because it's not every fast food chain in California that is paying people $20 an hour. Panera Bread, because a number of Panera Bread locations are owned by a major campaign donor to Governor Gavin Newsom. Panera Bread is exempt from the $20 minimum wage. So friends and allies of the liberal intelligentsia, the liberal elite, governor of California, they don't pay $20 an hour because they were carved out.
Panera Bread franchise guy
Nothing
I'm
wrong with
open-minded.
Panera.
I have some questions.
If Mike Tyson is available at a Panera
I'll
Bread
let him hit me with a
location-
piece of bread.
Yeah.
Punch me afterwards.
I do find that completely hysterical because they actually, like, in the legislative text, if I'm not mistaken, carved out bread.
Yeah, like
Straight up.
like
If you sell
on-site
bread.
bakeries. Yeah.
Right, like we're dealing with the 1920s and the Great Depression, and people are like, "Here, sir, have some more." You know what I mean? It's like this is not a bread. They make fucking sandwiches and soup.
Yeah.
Like, why is it different?
Have you had the bread bowl soup though? Because it's dank. It's so good.
No, it's good.
It's so good. If he throws that in, I could be open for business too.
Franchise dude, hit us up. But I mean, that's the thing is,
Lifetime bread bowls.
Lifetime
it's
bread
so
bowls.
cynical.
Yeah.
It's so cynical. And the thing is, it makes it more cynical is because this is just straight up showing he doesn't care about a robust economy. He doesn't care about people being able to make money and care for their families. He's doing this because of donors. Like, that's what matters to him is the dude who's going to cut his campaign a check.
Like Panera Bread is a bread line.
Yeah.
Please, sir,
Yeah.
have some more. Oh my God, it's just so embarrassing. But New York City, not to be outdone, has decided, according to the New York Post, a New York City couple are sued by squatters who allegedly took over their $930,000 investment home and they won't leave. Quote unquote, it's absolutely absurd. A pair of alleged squatters accused of unlawfully moving into a Queens duplex are suing its rightful owners after refusing to vacate a $930,000 home. It's the latest logic-defying chapter in an ongoing squatter saga in the borough, which in recent weeks has seen multiple homes occupied by unwelcomed invaders who claim rights to the properties under New York City's permissive laws. Okay. Like, I've heard a lot of stories about this over the years, about how you have, you know, somebody has an investment property or something that's not, like, occupied, or they have, like two homes, and they'll go, like, north and south or whatever, and it's open for a period of time, and people will just, like, literally move into them.
They'll steal it.
Yeah. And then there are places like New York City that basically are like, no, if you moved in like that, you've got rights to this place. I mean,
It's
what
insane.
the fuck?
I mean, that's the thing is, like, if you have someone breaks into your house, you'd think the first thing to do is call the police. But in these cases in New York City, and it's happening in California, where they give rights to squatters to be on that property, where the police show up and they're like, nothing we can do. And if you try to forcibly remove them, we're charging you with assault. Like, this is the insane backwardsness of what is happening to these places.
It's third world country shit.
Yeah.
You know,
It is.
like when you're, you know, working, you know, for a corporation looking to invest in a foreign market, the number one thing you look at in a country is, like, do they respect property rights? Because you don't want to, like, build a factory and then have a government seize it.
Somebody just rolls in.
Yeah,
and it's
rolls
like,
in.
mine.
But, like, this is the state of the United States of America in the year of our Lord 2024. Is that, like, you've got places like New York City that don't even respect property rights here in this country. And I've got, like, a message to every illegal immigrant that Abbott, you know, thank the Lord, has been shipping up to New York City. Go ahead and just, like, squat in some of these properties. Let's see if we can get them to remove their sanctuary city status after that happens.
Well, according to this article, within the 5 boroughs, squatters need only to occupy the property for 30 days before a wide range of legal protections kick in that make it difficult for the owners to evict them. 30 days.
And there was that viral TikTok video, you know, from a few weeks ago of it was an illegal saying that, hey, to my fellow illegals, if you go to New York, if you go to these places that have these squatter laws, break into someone's home if they're not there, and it's yours now.
You're telling me if I just roll up to a place in December in the Hamptons and, like, set up shop, I could just have, like, a multi-million-dollar house?
Oh, no,
in the
Mike,
Hamptons?
the police will take you away then.
Yeah, I don't think that applies to you, Michael.
Oh, okay.
You know, they're okay with non-citizens. This is not a thing for Americans. We don't get benefits.
No.
But I want it.
Yeah, but I want it. And I think I deserve it.
I thought that's how things worked in America today.
Well, apparently 30 days, if you can get past them for 30 days, you got a wide range of different things that you can hook your
I'm
lantern on.
just saying, I like a good polar plunge. Just go out there to the ocean, 30 degrees, set up shop for 30 days, you get a multi-million-dollar mansion. I'm just saying, it might be in the cards.
What would you do, Smug, if you rolled back in your home after a vacation and there are people just sitting by the fire with a cocktail?
So thankfully in North Carolina, I could just open fire. That's the thing. This is the sad thing. It's the same thing as that case of the guy who was on the subway when the dude lost his mind and is attacking people, and he steps in to stop him, and now he's the one getting handcuffed. They want lawlessness in New York City, and I hope the people there who have voted for that are the ones who are subject to consequences, and not the people, because there's a lot of conservatives in New York City who are stuck, and they're having to deal with these Looney Tunes who run the town making these kind of policies where your home is being stolen. How insane is that? And that's just normalcy now. Unbelievable.
Pay attention to down ballot stuff, folks.
Yep.
Pay attention to down ballot stuff. Do some research, because the reason that all these things are on the books is because you're voting for president, you're voting for Senate, you're voting for governor, and then you're I don't know what these other races are.
Yeah.
And who does is the loons on the left.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you get policies like this.
Yep.
But for all of you who live in places who you just have decided, despite the fact that you've got rampant crime, you're still going to attack progressive left. Enjoy the squatter.
Yeah.
Enjoy the
Yeah,
squatter.
I hope those are the folks who deal with it.
I'm pro squatter.
Yep.
I want the squatter to enjoy the luxuries of life because they voted for it. They have, the squatter. All they're doing is operating within the confines of the law that they set.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pro squatter.
And that's the funny thing is none of the folks who are facing squatters are the Democrat donors and the vote, on Park Avenue who have doormen and security guards. There's no squatters going up there. It's like they said, it's in Queens.
I want to find all of the Democratic major donors who invariably have a place in New York.
Up and down Park Ave. You'll find a million.
Up and down, but they don't live there. They come back.
Oh, they live in Florida.
Yeah, they live in Florida.
Yeah.
And they complain about, how great everything is in
yeah.
Florida. But I'd like to just organize some kind of an effort to just mass squatting.
That would be amazing. That's the problem is so many of these Looney Tune policies affect working class, regular folks. The billionaire, left-wing, dark money donors, they don't have to deal with any of the crime.
All we need...
They want these Soros prosecutors. They don't have to deal with the consequences of legalizing crime.
All we need is the doorman to take a lunch break, and we need an elevator code.
Yeah.
And we can make this happen.
Can make it happen, and then just go up there and just sit, and then just order delivery from there on out. 30 days, that's all it takes.
Yeah.
You're all good. And you got a brand new Park Avenue apartment.
I think we got a lot of strategies here.
I think this is a good strategy. Okay. Pro squatter, and I'd straight-face, by the way, I'd straight-face the shit out of a press conference on that.
Yeah. They deserve it. The people who support this policies, they deserve it.
These are the laws, and you set them, and these people are abiding by them. I guess your client is not. Person who paid for that. All right, we're going to get to a whole lot more, including a bunch of good frivolity and variety after this.
At Ruthless, we love this country and its amazing history. Defending our values means remembering where we came from. There's no better way to connect with history than to hold a piece of it in your hand. For over 20 years, our great sponsor at CSN Mint has offered a wide variety of certified U.S. Mint collectible coins and precious metals. For example, right now they're offering a Morgan silver dollar that was struck in 1878, a 140-year-old piece of American history you can have as your own. Coins hold both intrinsic and historic collectible value. While stacking silver in the form of bars or rounds holds an intrinsic value of the metal, coins, particularly certified coins, hold additional value as historic collectibles. So explore CSN Mint's extensive catalog of bullion bars, coins, and historic collectibles. Whether you're a seasoned investor or a passionate collector, you'll find a diverse range of products to suit your needs and preferences. At CSN Mint, trust is paramount. Every product you purchase includes the original Certificate of Authenticity, or certified and graded by a third-party grader to ensure origin and purity. With CSN Mint, you can build your collection with confidence. Experience world-class customer service and support with CSN Mint. Their team of knowledgeable professionals is available to assist you every step of the way, from product to selection to order fulfillment and beyond. Own a piece of our great American history. Go to csnmint.com/ruthless and use promo code RUTHLESS at checkout to get a free silver American Eagle over $30 in value with your purchase of $75 or more.
Okay, so airlines, pal. Smug, this is right up your alley.
I always love.
United Airlines is making a U-turn. They returned to a German airport after takeoff due to a waste-leaking toilet.
Ugh.
We've had a couple of stories in this regard. This one sounds particularly troubling. A United Airlines flight abruptly turned around when a broken toilet sent contents of a waste tank flowing into the passenger's cabin, according to a report. This is New York Post again. United Flight 59 took off from Frankfurt, Germany, Friday afternoon. It was supposed to land in San Francisco before it made a U-turn a couple of hours into the trip, the German outlet Bild reported. The content of at least one of the toilets was pushed up from the tank and overflowed. While the flight crew attempted to figure out the problem on the Boeing 777, if it could be fixed, the plane circled around the North Sea before returning to Frankfurt Airport, according to that publication in Germany. Bild. Passengers were given hotel rooms and rebooked for other flights. Oh, I'm sure that was a great...
Yeah. They're happy for losing a day because the toilet's blown up. Like, let's be serious. I mean, the thing is this happens, this kind of stuff, whenever you hear these stories, it's a U.S. airline. Mm-hmm. Because for some reason, these bastards get away with treating people worse than animals. Whether it's Delta, Southwest, American, they're United, they're all guilty of it. They all do a terrible job. They treat people horribly. And all they do is anytime there's any kind of like a economic downturn, they come hat in hand in front of Congress and say, give us the taxpayer money, please, please, save us, save us. And then they get the money, and the next day they're back to abusing the American people. These bastards should be jailed. All of them should be jailed.
See, I was wondering if maybe some of the blame needs to be shared amongst the passengers here.
Well, if somebody did it,
yeah,
they're empty tanks when they took off.
I'm imagining a bunch of tourists in Germany here in Frankfurt, and they're in the airport, and they're like, one more bratwurst. It's my last chance to enjoy a nice, big, old, fatty, spicy bratwurst before you get on an international flight back to Newark.
I will say also one thing.
From a cart at the airport.
Yeah.
Frankfurt Airport. So I've been there a long time ago. I hope they haven't changed this policy. It was at a time when I used to smoke cigarettes.
Yes.
And they have areas inside the airport. You don't have to walk outside or anything.
You just smoke them.
Where it's like the cigarette area, right? And I was like, wow, that's awesome, right? I'm going to go check out the cigarette area. And it's like they've got seats and stuff, and it's just like 40 seats in a room facing each other, and you're just seeing people chain. They're just like looking at each other through this like deep haze of cigarette smoke, and they have like
is it glassed in like a fishbowl?
Yeah.
Because they did this in Charlotte at one point, didn't they not?
And they have
I seem to remember this.
They have like these like air filtration things that are like trying to pull as much air out of here as possible. But it's like, people have been, this is an international airport. People have been like 6 hours without a hit, just going hard. Like, I mean, I went back to back. I saw like 4 or 5 people going back to back to like, I'm going to build it up for the next flight across the Atlantic. But it was just wild. Everyone just, 40 people in a room staring at each other, going in, ripping cigs.
When you're in an indoor facility and you're watching multiple people light their next cigarette with the last cigarette, you're in a spot.
You're in flavor country at that point.
Nothing but sophistication.
Yeah. I love that. All right, so American Airlines revises its policy for bringing pets and bags on flights. This is according to CBS. American Airlines is relaxing part of its pet policy to let owners of their animals, animal companion, and full-size carry-on bag into the cabin. Until this week, people who have carried on a pet involve a $150 fee that could only have one other item that can, fit under the seat or above their wherever. Anything bigger, like a carry-on bag on wheels, needed to be checked for a $35 fee. Now American is letting passengers bring a pet into the cabin and also bring another regular carry-on bag and a personal item, just not both bags, the old policy struck some pet owners as unfair.
They don't specify dogs and cats. So what I'm wondering is, are people bringing other animals onto the plane? Or is it like a miniature horse?
Yeah, dude, because
Like a
this is what we
Highland
saw particularly in the COVID area when people lost their minds. Mm-hmm. They had, they would get around all of these airline things by having a distress animal, where they would go and get like a doctor's prescription,
Right.
for like their pet llama,
Right.
and then you'd see these people like sitting.
Yeah, like it's my mental care llama.
yeah, right.
Right.
They would have like an ostrich sitting next to them in the seat or whatever.
Right.
And like, maybe this gets at that a little bit, but like, how do we feel about this? Like, it seems like now they're just sort of letting the pets roam free.
Well, that's just like what I said, is they've fully come to terms with the fact that they treat everyone like animals. They're like one and the same. Why would we differentiate and require any difference?
Don't you just lay hay down at some point?
Essentially on Southwest, that's what they do. There's no rules, essentially. They don't even assign seating in those things. It's,
I kind
it's
of
a
think
barn.
I kind of think it should be like Airbnb, right? Like if you want to go to Airbnb and rent somebody's home or something, there's some homes that accept animals and some that don't.
Yes.
That there should be flights.
A flight.
Yeah, where it's
An
like
animal flight.
This will be a flight where it's a zoo.
Yeah.
And then all the
And
other
that
flights
should be a
could
choice from
for
a consumer's standpoint.
Maybe the price is a little
lower. Like if you want to fly with a llama and somebody with their comfort, iguana,
Well,
you're
here's the
not
thing
going to
is,
pay as much.
They took away peanuts, saying that's because of peanut allergies, but they'll let people bring on their dogs and cats. Like, this is absurdity. And number one, why are dogs and cats on the damn plane? Don't get them on the plane. They're not allowed on planes. Don't let them on there. That's ridiculous.
What about in the cargo hold? Isn't that where they used to put them?
I think that's where they go. Is if
I think
they
it
can hack
killed a lot
it,
of
if
them.
they can hack it, they can hack it. But like, it's on someone. They're like, well, listen, I'm gonna put my animal on a metal cylinder that goes 3,000 miles an hour, and I want no consequences. I'm just gonna put everyone else out of their way. My dog's gonna be barking. My cat's gonna be losing its mind. They smell horrible. Why do we have to put up with this?
If
talking about allergies.
your llama is that important, drive.
Or if you're on a Boeing, 737 Max, throw the cat out the hole when it opens up.
The cat sits next to all of the doors.
Yeah.
That feels right.
That's a good.
All right, one more piece of animal news. If we can cue up this clip, Spaghetts, this is going to be clip number 2, and it's B-rolls of monkeys.
Holy shit.
Oh man.
Oh, yeah.
This is a problem.
Yeah, it's ravaging.
I thought it would be okay. So for the folks who aren't on YouTube, so the article said that rampaging monkey gangs are terrorizing Thai tourist town. I thought it would be like 6 to 10.
No,
Right.
This is like 100.
It's a battalion organized
It's a battalion,
into
dude.
platoons.
but they're attacking the shit out of each
Yeah,
other.
this is monkey on monkey violence. It's 2 monkey gangs battling for turf. And it makes me think.
It's in Thailand.
Yeah, it makes me think, though, that maybe we arm both sides of this conflict and solve our problem. You
What do you
Arm
arm
the
'em? What do you
moderate
arm 'em
macaque?
with?
No, there are no moderates. I'm saying you arm the Taliban, you arm ISIS, you arm El Nusra,
Yeah,
you
but what do you-
arm Islamic Jihad.
what do you give
get
'em?
them
What do you
all,
give 'em?
get them all to fight each other.
What do you give them? You're not giving
In theory,
them
this didn't work out well.
It didn't. It
Feels-
didn't. It's
feels
been a
like
major failure of neoconservatives.
I feel like this would be a bad move.
Yeah, I know, but think of the clips.
No, I mean, it would make for great content. It goes without saying that these are aggressive macaques.
Like maybe we just drop leaflets, but instead of dropping the leaflets, like this is why we're bombing you. You drop the leaflets and you're like, banana pool. It's so great. Everybody meet at the banana pool at 12.
They can't read.
Well, I mean, we can use images. They can use tools. They have opposable thumbs.
What are you going to arm them with, Michael? If you're going to
Knives,
arm each
probably,
side?
right?
Tasers. Tasers.
A taser?
Yeah, we're gonna give them all tasers. I mean, look, I'm just riffing. I don't know, but I'm throwing it out to the group. I think it has worthy appeal.
So from the article, it says
Yeah, well,
Police
I hope
Major
it
General Aparaka, I apologize for pronouncing Wechkanchana, commander of the provincial police, ordered to establish a special unit to combat aggressive wild monkeys. He says, I'm aware of the potential danger from monkeys. They're giving slingshots to their officers.
Yeah,
like they're fighting with slingshots.
No, but more than that. So the local police station has now issued wooden catapults that officers could use to fire at the unruly primates, which often climb over cars and steal food from shops and tourists as they vandalize property.
Okay, so now I'm interested. I want to see the anti-monkey catapults
Yeah.
in action. That's the footage we need.
I'd like to see that, but I do have another idea. I do.
Okay.
I do.
Is this the banana pool?
No, I think what we
let's
do
be
is
honest.
we select a handful of Democrats from Congress, the ones who we dislike the most, and we put them in a banana costume, and we tell them to start running as fast as they possibly can through the crowd of monkeys. The monkeys follow the Democrat in the banana costume to the banana pool, and then they're done.
Yeah, they're done.
So you think you just lure them into the
You
banana
lure them.
pool?
You lure them.
I'm just not sure that that's going to work. These seem like fairly well organized. What they say is they're gangs
Yeah.
that they've formulated on their own, right? I mean, this isn't just like a horde of monkeys.
No, this is well organized social behavior within monkey
and it
community.
clearly is, because it says here in the article, the team managed to capture the troop's leader, like
They have a leader.
one of the monkey gangs, I Crow, who was famous among the local vendors and drivers due to its aggressiveness. They said they hit it with a sedative dart. Why not just shoot them? I mean, let's be real here.
You're right. You're
Live
right.
rounds.
Don't you
This
just
is-
try to send a message to the rest of the monkeys?
That's the thing is, once like you body about 20 to 30 of the gang,
Yeah.
they find a new job.
If there are too many monkeys, the animal control is the problem. You have animal control. If there is such thing as animal control, their job is to eliminate the problem. A handful of monkeys wandering the street is one thing, but like they literally need to go through and just eliminate these. Why
You have a problem, you solve it, and usually a gun can do it.
Well,
a
it says
gun
that-
or like a flamethrower? Why didn't somebody walk out into the middle of that pack and just start flamethrowing?
Now,
they
that
wouldn't
would
have
be
lasted.
footage. That
They
would
wouldn't
be
have
footage.
lasted.
No, that would work. And they're
Good
hairy
monkey,
animals.
Good monkey meat right,
Right.
there.
Yeah. Well, it's the Thai government is struggling to control its macaque problem, it says. And everybody knows controlling macaque is, I mean, that's important. It's really important.
Tall order.
It's a tall order, no question about it. All right, fellas, we're going to get to our interview here. A very, very interesting guy, General Tata. Well, you hear from a lot of politicians on this particular program, but it's very rare that we get an actual hero in here, Michael. And we got one here today.
Yeah.
General Tata, welcome.
Great to be here.
How
Thank
are you,
Josh.
sir?
I'm doing great. I don't know that I'm a hero, but
Well, we consider
I
you
certainly
one.
appreciate the compliment.
You certainly have the resume of a hero. Just an incredible military career that you've had. And that includes commands of the 82nd Airborne, the 101st Airborne Divisions, 10th Mountain Division, operations in Afghanistan, Bosnia, Croatia, Macedonia, Kosovo, Panama, Haiti. I mean,
Yeah, well, I've been around the world a couple times,
Sounds like
shaking
it.
every bush. But I do have a story that I could tell that sort of reinforces never believe your own press releases, right? So I'm in Afghanistan. I'm the deputy commanding general there, and this is 06. And Colonel Ed Reeder, who was my special forces commander, and I are in the Joint Operations Center, and we're directing combat operations down in Helmand Province. And a lot of stuff was happening, and Ed looks at me and says, "Sir, what are two alpha males like us doing here standing in the jock?" And I said, good point, Ed. We should go down there, which was exactly the wrong decision. And so we fly down there, and the sun's coming up, my helicopter's landing. We spend the day with the troops, and we had some casualties, and we walk around, do what leaders do.
Yeah.
Morale, get in the foxhole, that kind of thing. And on the way out, we're standing in a poppy field. It's me, Ed Reeder, his radio guy, my radio guy. And my helicopter's in the distance, the sun's getting ready to go down, and Ed Reeder's radio guy says, "Sir, we have a communication intercept that there's a sniper across the river with instructions to shoot the one without the rifle." So I look at Ed, he's got his rifle. I look at the radio operator, he's got his rifle. I look at my guy, he's got his rifle. I always carried a rifle, but in the haste to get out of there, my guy didn't give me my rifle. And and so
Get real low in a hurry,
Ed Reeder looks at me, he's, dear friend, looks at me and smiles and spits some tobacco juice in the poppy field, good North Carolina Fayetteville boy. He says, "Sir, looks like you're about to have a bad day." and so I said, "Colonel, this is a direct order. Give me that rifle." He said, "Ain't happening."
Holy smokes.
So we started doing the matrix thing a little bit, where you just weave a little bit so the sight picture doesn't. I don't know if you ever took the shot, but we obviously made it. But
You got out of it.
And the lesson learned is, hey, in combat, everybody's the same, right?
Yeah, it doesn't matter what your title is.
Exactly. So
I love
that's
that.
always kind of kept me humble.
I love that visual of you having to serpentine around a poppy field to avoid sniper.
Yeah, I wouldn't move my feet. I was trying to be I still have my man card to keep.
Yeah, right.
Be a little courageous about it.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, it must have been an incredible experience.
Yeah.
And you were in the Pentagon most recently.
Yeah. So, 2016, I was in North Carolina. I had been Secretary of Transportation, Education Superintendent for the biggest county there, Wake County, 150,000 students. I had a good reputation in North Carolina. I was asked to help President Trump, then candidate Trump in 2016. Never got the call. Interestingly, the establishment kind of jumps across the border once he won, and a lot of people got left out in the cold. But the last year, I get the call, and hey, we want to interview you to come serve in the administration, and so anytime president asks me to serve, I serve, and. So I gave up my business, divested myself of everything.
Yeah, that's a fun process,
It's a
right?
big deal, right? You know the drill. And but I got to serve in the Pentagon the last 6-7 months of the Trump administration, and in the number 3 job there, performed the duties as undersecretary. What an important job! How key it is to maintain those relationships, have the experience to be able to talk to people, around the world.
It also had been interesting to see it all from a different perspective.
Yeah, well, the key perspective was, as a retired flag officer, retired general, the civilian control of the military, you get a completely different perspective on general officers and admirals and all of that. And it was very useful for me to be in that position for 6 or 7 months. I mean, I respect everybody who serves, either everybody counts or nobody counts, but you get to see them in a position where they're your subordinate. Your civilian control of the military is a real thing. And you get to see how they operate, and some are doing a great job, some are not. Right. And just like any job you have, where if you're a captain, you assess your lieutenants. If you're a lieutenant colonel, you assess your captains. If you're a general, you assess your colonels. And it was an interesting process to see these 4 stars, some doing fantastic work, some not so much.
Yeah, I mean, it's just from your experience alone, I got to imagine just seeing it from the other side of it gave you a perspective that was eminently helpful within the Pentagon.
Yeah, right? Well, I mean, I had been, so this job, the policy job, you're in charge of all the war plans. You're in charge of all the training and exercises and all of that that are associated with the war plans. You're in charge of providing responses to or options to the president for anything that happens, whether it's Navalny got poisoned when I was there. So my Russia team lead provides me some options, because you have to respond to that. Yeah. You have to give the president options. You can say this, but you can't say this because this is classified, and we don't want them to know that certain things about this poison that was used. Here are some options. You can kick out some diplomats. You can nuke them. You can do this. You can do that, and that's the policy guy's job. And then either directly to the president or give it to the SecDef and let the SecDef take it. And then usually a national security advisor's in there. And so that job is a really key, pivotal job in the Pentagon, probably more so than any of the other undersecretary jobs. They're all important. Everybody does hard work. So.
Yeah, well, I imagine it gives you great comfort to see Kamala Harris saying that she's reviewed all the maps in Israel and Gaza, and she has some strategic planning that she'd like everybody to adhere to.
Well, we have to review the maps because the map reviews are important to review, and having the maps that we can review are important to review. And so we're going to review the maps.
Yeah.
A general with a sense of humor.
I like it. Yeah.
Michael?
So there's obviously a lot of news going on in the world right now. There was the terrorist attack in Russia, and it seems like, ISIS, or at least a component of it, seems to be resurgent in the region. It's pretty brazen to conduct an attack like that in another country, not just in an area like Syria or there in Iraq, where we typically thought that's where ISIS operates. And I'm curious, like, given your background and your experience, what do you make of all that?
Yeah, so it's interesting that, quote unquote, ISIS is taking credit for an attack in Russia, and with whom traditionally they've had a little bit of conflict in Syria,
right.
and so maybe there's a little bit of payback coming, but it seems pretty far afield. It seems a little bit out of character. So I think there's more to learn there. I think if we've learned anything over the last 4 years, the first report is typically wrong. Let's analyze it. Let's assess it. You always today, in today's age, you have to ask yourself, okay, there's this narrative out there that people want you to believe, and if something fits nicely into the narrative, you really better start questioning it. And if something doesn't fit nicely into the narrative, watch how people try to bring it into the narrative. And so, this could be 100% face value. What people are saying, these guys could be, low-paid hires by ISIS to go do this kind of terrorist attack. It seems to me that it's very out of character for ISIS. So one of two things is happening. One is we don't know the full story, or two, ISIS is growing and learning and saying, we can outsource some of this.
Yeah.
We don't need our crazy Islamic jihadists to go do everything. We can get lower paid Islamic jihadists to go out and do stuff. And
like
send
a network
message.
or something.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, like Al-Qaeda.
Right.
That is the database. That's what Al-Qaeda means. And so I think that perhaps that's happening. You look at, speaking of the narrative, you've got this horrible accident in Baltimore Harbor. Every ship has trained harbor pilots, master pilots that drive it through the channel and out into the Chesapeake Bay, get off in Virginia Beach, and then drive them back up and that kind of thing. And what happened there? And it's an accident. The pilot reported a power outage. Was it cyber attack? Was it just a basic malfunction? The guy had just left port. I mean, they weren't out of the berth for too long to have that much speed. So I think it's fair to ask questions. And one of the issues we see today, because we've been lied to so much by the media, and I don't care if it's left or right or whatever, there's this narrative forming and sustaining and maintaining that by definition, people are going to be lying to you. We got to start asking questions about this, because we know that they're going to just try to tuck it into the narrative, and we need to know, was this a cyber attack? I don't know. It could be at face value. A mechanical issue happened and they destroyed a bridge. And by the way, one of my books, Besieged, that's what they do, is they sink ships, cargo ships, in the channels of Baltimore Harbor.
You're saying somebody's reading too many of your books, maybe.
Norfolk, Navy base. And to think about it, that port's not going to be usable for a long time.
Yeah.
And the second, third order effects on jobs and families in the Baltimore area, the supply chain and all of that. So we need answers.
Was there a point in your career, because look, all of us have a ton of admiration for the military, the way it operates, the mission-oriented framework. But a lot of times that means, the narrative is set by, as you said, civilian leadership of the Pentagon, the President of the United States, everything else. Your job is to just go out and sort of execute.
Right.
Was there a point in your career where this component became more important to you, where you thought, well, everything that happens, we need to start actually investigating and understanding deeply?
That's a really insightful question. I'll tell you, an inflection point for me happened in 2000. I was a colonel commanding a 101st Airborne Division Brigade in Kosovo. We were in combat, North Macedonia, Kosovo. There was one brigade holding the Serbs at bay on the western part, and I had the sort of the light infantry fight along the Macedonia border with the rebels that were trying to go back and forth. And President Bush came and visited us about 45 days before 9/11, and after 9/11 happens, I get the call, "Hey, Tata, you're coming back, and you're going to go to Afghanistan." I'm like, that's what we do. Yeah. And so Thanksgiving, I get off the planes with my troops at Fort Campbell, and a few weeks later, we're out training at Fort Polk to just reintegrate and go to high-intensity combat operations and get recertified to go to combat. And my commanding general, Dick Cody, comes in, sits in my command post, and says, "You're not going to Afghanistan. You're going to Iraq." I'm like, What's in Iraq? This was early January 2002. I'm like, we haven't caught this bin Laden guy yet.
Right.
We haven't killed or captured Al-Qaeda yet.
You're 15 months removed from 9/11.
Right. Not even 4 months removed.
Oh,
This was
in 2002.
This was January 2002.
Oh, wow.
When the mission change came. This is kind of my point, is that early, the genius, the Paul Wolfowitz, Doug Feith, Rumsfeld, Cheney, all those geniuses had decided they're not going to. Afghanistan's going to be a secondary impact, secondary effort, and we're going to Iraq. And we're, regardless of why, we're going to Iraq. And because what did they have? They had the goodwill of the American people to go kick some butt. There weren't enough butts to kick in Afghanistan, so they wanted to go to Iraq and kick some butt. And to me, and I actually went when I got home from that training, I'm a writer, and I wrote about a 2-page thing about how this was the wrong decision to do. And it's based on bad decision making, personal vendettas, all of that. The civilian leadership in the Pentagon was misrepresenting the case. I kept it to myself. I saluted, moved out, did my duty, continued to serve. But to me, that was internally, I knew there was a turning point in me that, this civilian leadership, whether it's the administration or in the Pentagon or any agency, they have political agendas. I think of the influence and power to make Colin Powell go say what he said to the United Nations when, in his book, he says he didn't believe it. Yeah. Think about that peer pressure, that coercive power to take an American icon like Colin Powell and make him go essentially say untrue things to the United Nations.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
So, look, you spent a lot of time in that war, in the war on terror. Obviously, what happened at the beginning of the Biden administration with the retreat from Afghanistan and the manner in which they did it had to have been devastating for you and everybody you associated with during those times, heavy combat and what you were fighting for.
Yeah, I spent 13 months there. I think we had 89 soldiers come back in body bags. I had soldiers call me after, as this thing was unraveling, and crying, "Sir, was it worth it?" Texts, email, DMs on socials, and it's heartbreaking. And I was doing a lot of Fox News and Newsmax, still am. Particularly then, though, as this thing was unraveling, I get a call from Fox, "Hey, man, are you available?" And it's Steve Hilton on Sunday, because it that's when everybody, people started falling off airplanes and stuff. And so I was like the first guy on on Fox on this thing, and probably one of the more watched shows that year. And I talked about how a generation of veterans, 20 years of veterans, cycled through this and are personally, emotionally invested in this. And it's not just active duty soldiers, sailor, airmen, Marines, and DoD civilians and their families, reserve, National Guard, all. I mean, you had the fabric of America invested, not so much in the outcome of Afghanistan. I think everybody understood that, it was always going to be dicey, but and treating their service with respect and a proper exit. And as the undersecretary, as we were discussing exit from Afghanistan, we told President Trump, having about 2,000, 2,500 troops there, so you can collapse on Bagram Air Base, the most defensible base there. You got the Northern Alliance up there, a friendly tribal influence, and you can figure it out from there. And so it would be too rushed to do it before the change in command, from one president to the next. But so leave this number, leave all these plans we have, and hope they do it right.
Which in retrospect was like the wide view of everyone on the military side, it seems like.
Yeah. And even to Biden, if you believe what McKinsey and Austin have said, they recommended that they continue his presence, and Biden said, no, get him out of there. And what I had done as the I had been always talking to my NATO peers there, the similar
part of the job.
Yeah, and our mantra was we came in together, we adjusted force levels together, and we're going to leave together. Yeah. And Biden fundamentally broke NATO because he just left. Right, there was no lateral coordination, and part of it was the haphazard way in which the transition team had come in. They got rid of everything that had any kind of Trump people touch it, and to include the plans for that transition. And they purged people off the transition boards. Like, defense policy board's a big deal. When I was there, the former Undersecretary of Policy for Obama was on that board. They participated in making sure that there were leveling voices in the conversations and key to any transition is having institutional knowledge.
Yeah, and there's only one team involved in this.
Right.
It's America.
It's about the country.
Yeah.
But the reigning arrogance of the incoming team was such that anybody associated with Trump is, an idiot, not worth even considering. And so they genuinely started new on this Afghanistan thing. And there were plans in existence and now, we lost, 13
needlessly
great Americans and a couple dozen more missing limbs.
Yeah. Not to mention with our allies and translators.
And we left 29 countries hanging, broke NATO in a fundamental way, broke NATO.
Oh, man, it's just horrible.
So let's get to this book. This is part of a series that you've written. You've done a lot of books.
Right.
But this new one, tell us about it.
Yeah, so Phalanx Code is the third in the Garrett Sinclair series. Garrett Sinclair is the commander of Joint Special Operations Command. He runs Task Force Dagger, which is a presidential subunit that does presidential directed missions. His backstory is his wife, that he had been married to for, some 30 years before she passes. His college roommate, who is now the president. And so he has this very close relationship with the president. They have point-to-point encrypted cell phones, and that's how he gets his missions. And here in Phalanx Code, he's struggling with the men versus mission theme of an ungrateful political class. I have this scene where he's in Arlington, right across the river here, and he turns around, he's visiting the gravesite of one of his soldiers, and he turns around and he sees the Washington Monument, and in his mind, It's just a giant middle finger to all of the soldiers that have paid the ultimate sacrifice, and it's the political class against the little guy. And so Phalanx Code is about this combination between big tech, big government, big journalism against the little guy. And the idea for it came when some dude in the White House, the Biden White House, eating a cheeseburger with his feet up, calls some dude in Twitter, probably eating a cheeseburger with his feet up, and says, hey, I don't like these 40 or 50 people. They're saying mean things about my boss.
Yeah.
Deplatform them.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so they get deplatformed. And I'm like, that's about the most un-American thing that can happen. That's techno-fascism. And so that combination between big tech, big government, and big media is got its jackboot on the neck of Joe Sixpack in America. And that's really the theme of the Phalanx. Because you got the Phalanx Corporation, which is the worst. Think worst instincts of Google and Facebook, digital carnivores, taking all your information, teaming up with the government to oppress you, to prevent you from escaping out of this narrative that we've been talking about. And then on the other side of the ledger is the Optimus Project. Think Elon Musk and X. And I wrote this three and a half years ago before Elon Musk bought X. And the hero, Garrett Sinclair, gets called in to help protect the developers and coders creating decentralized Wi-Fi, decentralized finance to protect individual information, right? So you have big tech wanting to gobble up all your information, and you have DeFi, DY trying to help you protect that. And so Phalanx Corporation wants to break through that last line of defense of individual freedom and liberty and privatization. And that's the real tension here. And what Sinclair and his team learn is, who can they trust? And really, as they're trying to defend the Optimus Project coders, Sinclair learns of a stunning family secret, and he gets distracted by that, and then all of a sudden, everything that he cares about is at risk. And it's men versus mission. Is the mission that he's got to protect Optimus important enough to risk his entire team and his family?
What a fascinating story.
Yeah.
I'm just fascinated by you in general, just because, look, there's a lot of people who've tried to do sort of some version of what it is that you've been doing here, but to write thriller novels with the background that you've had is not something you stumble across every day. I mean, did you always love to write and love to...
I was one of those reader kids that would go to book fair day and come back with 50 books. And my parents would say, how are you going to read all those books? And 3 days later, I'd need more books. And I got to the point where I started reading. I got interested in, why am I so interested in this? How is this writer able to capture me every time? Hardy Boys or whatever. It's the setup, the 3 acts,
Yeah, right.
All of that. But I didn't understand. I was just lost in the story, right? And so I started...
But the actual infrastructure of why the story is so popular.
Exactly. And so how to write a mystery, how to write a, Stephen King's Danse Macabre and On Writing. Like, Clausewitz has On War. Stephen King has On Writing is the actual name of the book. And it's, those are kind of Bibles for being an author. And I read those and started writing. And
also writing about what you know and all your experience kind of makes the other side of it easy, right?
Yeah, well,
you don't need a lot of inspiration because you've lived a life where you've been close to a lot of the material that you write now.
Exactly. And so when I'm visualizing, I try to write in a very cinematic way so the person can visualize it. And so when I'm writing, I'm drawing on firefights I've been in. I'm not writing about those,
right?
But because
of the experience,
because I've heard the sound of Dishka machine gun rounds snapping overhead, or I've had RPGs smoking past me. I know what that sounds like. I know what the backblast feels like, and so Phalanx Codes. They already had to do a reprint on it. It's selling very well, and that's every author likes to get that email from their editor. Hey, Tony, we're having to do a reprint on your book.
Well, you got to tell Josh the story you told me before he got in here about the book you brought in here today, because I think this is a great story.
Oh yeah, well, so I normally St. Martin's Press sends me a couple boxes of books, and I send them out. See all these blurbs. I thank people, other authors that help me, and I mail them out. That's part of the drill. It's part of the code of authors, and we've got a great network of thriller writers that we go to all these conventions and we help each other out. And but the book sold out. They had no more to send me, and so I had to take an Uber to a Barnes and Noble to buy my own book. And,
Really?
And the checkout, very kind checkout lady. She's looking at my credit card, and she's looking at this. She goes, "You know this guy?" I'm like, "Yeah, he's kind of a jerk."
A real asshole. That's got me thinking of it. Oh, that's so great. I love that so much. All right, so look, everybody's got to buy this book and buy the previous. How many books have you written?
This is book 16, third in the series. But interestingly, my first threat series and my Jake Mahegan series, I bring it all together in here. And so I'm getting all these. This is part of the reason I think it's selling so well, because all my readers of my Matt Garrett threat series and all my readers of my Jake Mahegan series, it comes together. It comes together. And Jake was a very popular protagonist. The books have sold very well and continue to do so. But it was a different publisher, Kensington Books, great publisher. And so when St. Martin's brought me on, they're like, "Tony, give us something different." We want to. So I took the general from the Jake series and made him. I changed his name, but it's the same guy, same JSOC guy, and this one, I bring in Jake Mahegan, I bring in Matt Garrett, I bring in Hobart and Van Dreves, and
so you got the all-star team.
Exactly.
Of characters.
Hobart is a guy that's been in every single one of my books, and Rob Hobart is a Delta Force operator that I operated with in Bosnia, and when I was taking command in the 82nd Airborne Division, my house was not prepared. I came in early. They relieved the other guy. And so Hobart and Patty, his wife, say, "Just crash with me with us for a week or two." Well, in Rob's room was a computer back in the floppy disk days.
Oh, sure.
97,
yeah.
Right? And I had been writing when I had been in Bosnia on this little banged up laptop in those days. And I had 250 pages of Rogue Threat, which is number 2 in the Threat series. And so I had asked Rob if I could use his computer at night, and he thought I was doing command stuff or whatever, because I was in command, and get home at 10 or 11.
This is how you clear your mind.
Yeah, exactly. Put the floppy disk in there, type. Well, it started going a little corrupt on me. All those things. Remember all those?
I do remember that.
So I save it to the hard drive, and it takes me a couple of days because I'm in command, get by the PX, go buy some new floppy disk, and I come back, and I put the new floppy disk in there, and there's nothing on the hard drive.
Uh-oh.
And I'm like, and I've added 40 pages to this thing. So I go to Rob, I'm like, "Hey man, did you delete something from your computer?" He goes, "Yeah, I found this virus called Rogue Threat." True story, 1,000,000% true story.
Oh, man.
No way.
And I'm like, "Did you put it in a cute little trash bin that I can open up and
recover it?"
He goes, "Man, I'm Delta. I smoked that puppy."
He's like, "Don't you worry. Don't you worry. I took care of it."
And I'm like, "Well, okay, I got to come clean. I'm writing a book. It's a novel. I don't like to talk about it."
To be clear, I was writing a book.
You ruined it.
And so he turned sheet white, right? And so, and he's a dear friend, and several years later he retires, 5 years later maybe, and he's on an airplane flying. He's working for Boeing as something in security and flying into Chicago. And there's this guy sitting next to him, the high-pitched voice, super nice guy, talking about his hero, Scott Harvath. Well, it's Brad Thor, who is one of the icons of the thriller industry.
Totally.
Brad's New York Times bestselling author, tremendous guy, Simon & Schuster, and one of the bestseller books. Light bulb, as Rob talks about it, and get hello out of Rob is a major conversation. So I took this as a genuine act of friendship that he actually talked to this guy. He calls me when he lands. He says, "Tony," and Rob's a master sergeant. By now I'm a, I don't know, general. Yeah, right. And but that didn't matter. We're friends. And he says, "You're coming to Chicago this weekend, and we're having dinner with Brad Thor." It was like his penance. He's Catholic, right? And so am I. And
he had to make it up somewhere.
We have dinner, and Brad's like, "General, I want to help you however I can help you." And I said, "Well, I got these 3 books I've written." I gave them to him. About a month later, I hear from this publisher, "Hey, love your stuff."
No way. That's how it all started?
Yeah. I love your stuff. And so I get my first contract. I didn't have an agent. 3rd book in that series, Hidden Threats, on the Barnes & Noble Fifth Avenue new release thing. Scott Miller from Trident Media Agency takes a picture with his BlackBerry and emails me and says, "I want to be your agent." and Scott Miller's my agent today.
That's amazing.
And as homage to that story, Hobart, just it's like Cher or Bono, right? And or Bono, however you say it. And it's just Hobart. He's in all 16 of my books.
That's so good.
He's like a cameo up to like a major player. He's a major player in many of these books, and so that's
like the director that makes the appearance in every movie that he makes, right?
Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Oh, it's so good. All right, before I let you go, I got 3 questions that we ask every guest that comes on here. And this is where this diverges from like the serious stuff to like, our people really care about this. So if you could plan your last meal on Earth, what would it be?
Plan my last meal on Earth. Who would it be with, or what would it be?
No, what would it be? Like, what kind of food are you eating?
It would be a really nice Wagyu steak. So maybe some fries and
there you go.
Ice cold beer.
This is exactly the answer I thought you would provide us. I can't find a problem with any of that. That's good. All right. So second question is, you've obviously had a huge life of service at this point, military. You mentioned your North Carolina experience.
Mm-hmm.
But with the benefit of retrospect, if you look back on your life and you could just set kind of blue sky, you didn't do what you had done, but you could just do anything. You could fill it literally with absolutely anything. What would it be?
Yeah, I'm not sure I would change much. My mother had always told me, my nickname, believe it or not, was Bones as a kid. Bones, whatever you do, make sure you make a difference. Mm-hmm. And I have such deep emotional respect for my parents and the way they raised my brother, me, and my sister. They were 2 school teachers. My dad was a high school football coach. He spent 30 years in the Virginia state legislature as in the House of Delegates, and the son of Italian immigrants, brick mason. My grandfather was a brick mason. So that DNA imprinted on me. Serve, make a difference. I might have learned more about investing and all of that.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's, to me, probably the peak of my sort of self-satisfaction, honestly, was superintendent of Wake County Public Schools, where every day I knew that I was impacting students, and I would walk down the streets of Southeast Raleigh, and parents would stop me and say, "Mr. Tata, thank you for creating that Young Men's Leadership Academy. You changed my son's life. He was going nowhere fast, probably to prison, and now he's got a 3.9, and he's going to go to college."
Yeah, that's amazing. That's an amazing feeling.
I'm not sure I would change much.
Yeah,
honestly.
Well, it's interesting. All right, so our last question is a little esoteric. Our view is that almost every successful person is motivated by one of 2 things, either the thrill of victory or the agony of defeat. And it's not that anybody enjoys losing or that there's anybody that doesn't enjoy winning. It's what motivates you to take the next step and push yourself further and further. And like the prototypical agony of defeat person is like a Michael Jordan type thing, right? Where it's like every title he ever won, it was like 7 minutes of celebration and then it was on to the next. But if you like so much as insulted him on the way to the floor, he wore it like a backpack for his entire life, right? Using it as motivation. The other side of this, and I've kind of refined this, I think of it like a Phil Mickelson type figure, an optimist who pulls the 2-iron from 250 yards out, not because anybody thinks it's a smart shot, but because he thinks he can do it. Right. That's the thrill of victory guy.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So on that spectrum, if you look at sort of what's motivated you rise up the ranks and write books and all the things that you've done in your career, where do you think you find yourself on that spectrum?
Yeah, I maybe a little more toward the agony of defeat and then I get my thrill sort of with the last analogy or story I just told, when other people have victory that I've helped. And so for me, it's not necessarily a financial reward. It's an emotional reward. It's knowing that I have helped change some child's life or some soldier's life. That's really where I achieve the most personal satisfaction, and the agony of defeat or fear of failure probably plays a lot into that. But certainly my motivation came to lead the organizations I was charged with leading in the best way I could so that I could maximize outcomes for the individuals.
You don't want to let them down.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I didn't want to let them down and wanted them to succeed to their maximum potential.
Yeah.
So probably a little bit of both. A little art and science there. Both,
Yeah, it is a very right brain, left brain activity. Yeah. It turns out you've got a lot of that going on.
Right.
Well, look, the book, which everybody has to get, it's The Phalanx Code. General Tony Tata, thank you so much for coming in here.
Thanks, guys.
This is a real pleasure.
Yeah, a lot
You're
of
welcome
fun.
back anytime. I hope you sell 1 billion of these things.
Yeah, thank you.
Lucky to have somebody like that on the show.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? I mean, look, the guy's resume is just incredible. What I find so fascinating about him is that he has sort of ventured in an entirely different career in writing novels, the likes of which they compete with well-known novelists. And he's got characters that span, what do you say, 15, 16 books, something like that? It's crazy.
Well, it proves out the one tenet to writing, and that is write what you know.
Write what you know.
Yeah.
But he's done an awful lot of studying and an interesting guy nevertheless. Check out his book, Phalanx Code. I intend to get to that at my first convenience. But with that, fellas, I think we've done it here on a Tuesday.
I think so. Absolute banger of an episode. Gentlemen, thanks again to the General, and thank you so much to our listeners. Reminder, if you have not yet, subscribe on YouTube. It's much better with video. And vote in Hack Madness on my Twitter profile. So until next time, minions, keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs. We'll see you on Thursday. Stay ruthless.